Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with, I believe it's episode 17, and we're going to stop saying episodes. So, next installment in our Simplicity series. Now, for those of you that may be new, the Simplicity series is all about paper, scissors, adhesive, and keeping it very basic. Okay, maybe having a few sentiment stamp sets, but allowing for our paper pads to create our designs, okay? Our paper pads have beautiful papers in them, of course, and they can do the work for us. You don't need to have the die cutting machines and all of the inks and all of the stamps and anything else that you can think of to create beautiful cards. 6x6 paper pad, a pair of scissors. You can use a ruler and a pencil to cut your shapes. I would recommend a paper trimmer if you want to keep it simple. So my favorite paper trimmer is the Tim Holtz tonic small guillotine. Okay, now this can only fit an 8.5 piece of paper going this way. It cannot fit a 12x12. There is a guillotine that he does have with tonic that does handle 12x12 pieces of paper. It's at a good price point, and what's great with the guillotines is they're self-sharpening, so you don't have to worry about buying blades. So, you know, again, that adds into your expense. So just these few things. I have my liquid adhesive, which I enjoy using, the art glitter glue. You can use your tape runners, whatever you like, your foam squares, whatever you like to use to adhere all your pieces. So I grabbed this paper pad from my stash. It's a Recollections pad. I got it at my local Michael's. I do not know, I do not believe that this is still available. I bought this probably a couple years ago. But these are the papers that are in here. There's some great 6x6 papers that you can just mount on your wall, cut down to the front of your cards. They also have papers that maybe have this design where you can just use this, fussy cut this out, and put this on your card. So there's a lot of choices. One of the things that does come with a lot of the paper pads, some of them, you want to make sure that you fan through them or look at the front page, because that will show you the majority of the papers that are available in there. But they also have these banners or squares and rectangles, and they can be your sentiment, and that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to make 3 cards today. Excuse me. Do apologize. I'm coming off of a cold that just felt the need to linger. Yeah, I didn't want to go anywhere. So the other idea that I want to focus in on, and I've already got my papers pulled for this. I did a little bit of pre-planning for this video just to save some time and to save my gabbiness. Just, you know, let's be honest. But let's talk about measurements and layering, creating our mats. So a standard A2 size card is always what I usually go with, or that's what my primary card bases are, which means they are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now they can either be a landscape or they can be a portrait type card. So landscape is the long way from side to side, and your portrait is, it's tall from top to bottom. Now I usually go with, when I cut my papers down and have my card bases ready, so here's one right here, I always cut it at 4 1/4 by 11, and then I score at 5 1/2. So mine generally end up being a top folding card. If I make it a landscape card, now it's become a side folding card. All right, so now you can also cut them differently so that your side folding is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then if you would make it a portrait, then that's when it would be a top folding card. But this is just something that I've always gravitated to. Not really any real reason. It's, you know, again, you kind of find your way. What's great is when you use an 8.5 inch by 11 inch sheet of paper, depending upon how you cut it in the middle, you get 2 card bases from that. So for every 1 sheet, you get 2 cards to make out of that. Now, when it comes to my card bases, I do like to have a heavier weight. And I will link to paper that I use. I'm 9 out of 10, I do use a white card base, because then you can write inside of it. And it's just universal, because I can cut my piece of paper to cover this entire front. So even though it's a tan color, or this is actually the Desert Storm, even though that's a tan color, by me cutting my card design base, you don't know that it is a tan card until you open it. So you can have just one color of a card base, because you can cover it with your design base, what you build upon. So when it comes to, now also, I do not use the Nina Solar when it comes to my card bases. Again, I'll have it linked below what I use. It's a Mohawk paper, and it's very reasonable. It is more than half the cost of a ream, a full ream of either the 80-pound or the 110-pound by Nina Solar Crest. Now, I do not use the 110-pound for anything. I only use the 80-pound. When I do have that, I am only using that if I'm doing alcohol coloring. But again, this series here is to keep it simple. We're not pulling in alcohol markers or anything else like that. They are at a higher price point. Not saying you can't get in there, and not saying that there are not choices available for someone who does not want to have a huge expense. So we always do have options, and that's the beauty of this paper craft world. They're giving us options. They're giving us choices, and that's the beauty of it. So when we look at, one of the things that I enjoy when I'm just using paper is matting. And I get a lot of questions, you know, when it comes to the matting, how do you determine? So if I'm matting, I always start out with a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I take it down in 1/4 inch increments. So if this one here measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, my next mat is going to measure 4 by 5 1/4. That is going to give me a 1/8 inch border around my piece of cardstock. If I have that small of a border, then I'm going to use, again, 9 out of 10, a solid cardstock, because I'm just looking for it to frame when I mat. If I want to go down one more size, I will then, if this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, this is 4 by 5 1/4, this is going to be 3 3/4 by 5. So you can see I'm taking it down a 1/2 inch between these two. Between these two, it's a 1/4 of an inch. We can also keep going. So this one here, we're going to lose another 1/4 of an inch. So this is 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So those are the sizes. Now, again, you can keep getting smaller and smaller and so forth. But I figured I'd stop here. Again, 1/4 inch increments going down. So if I layer these, and I'm just going to use a little bit, I'm just going to use a dot of glue. So when I set this on top of each other, you're going to see the border that I get. I'm just going to play around. And again, I like to use my eyes to see what looks normal, if that makes sense. My eyes tell me I'm okay. If I'm off a little bit, again, it's a handmade card. We're not Hallmark. Nope. No, 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 no. So that's the beauty of our handmade cards. Now, these are bad colors. These are not normal, although they're not too bad. But these are just colors to show so that you can see the different layers. Just by going down 1/4 of an inch, you get this 3D effect. And your cardstock is getting heavier and heavier. It's getting thicker and thicker. So you're adding more dimension. And if I take this, I'm also covering the front of my card base. Again, that's why 9 out of 10 you see me use a white card base. It's easy. It's simple. And it keeps the cost down. So that's what we're going to look at. Now, I did use my Tim Holtz trimmer to cut these down. To frame something, to mat an image, do you have to use a trimmer? Absolutely not. You do not. I think for this, it does make it easier. So let's look at some of the cards that we're going to create. So here I have my 3 mats, and I used one of them to be the pattern paper. And that's usually if I'm using a piece of pattern paper within a mat series, and of course I choose black on my black glass mat here, then I want that one to be the one that's on the top. I don't want to put that here. Now I can, and I'll be showing that. So when it comes to this, when you're layering like this, here's the other beautiful thing as well. You don't need to have a thick cardstock for your mats. The cardstock that I use when I'm creating a mat or a layer is one of those value packs that you can get from, and again, I get mine from my local Michael's, where there's about 10 or 15 different colors in it. You can get like 200 pieces of cardstock, and it's about, they say, 65 pounds. So it's very pliable. But again, as you keep layering, it gets thicker and it gets more substantial, meaning firmer, okay? I think they are of a great value. I think Michael's also sells the packs where there's 50 sheets and you get 4 to 5 different colors in a theme. So they're nice as well, and they are great when they go on sale. A lot of times they do go on sale for either 4 or 5 for $10. So you're looking at either $2 to $2.50 US dollars for 50 sheets of paper that are colored. Now again, they're solid. But again, they kind of bring out all of the paper pads that you have. So let's just start layering these. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to use my liquid glue. And I'm just going to put a little bit down. And I'm going to set this in the center. And I know you can't see that center because, of course, awesome me, black cardstock. Yeah, not truly visible, but I'll pick it up. Only me. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my pattern paper. Just going to put a little bit of glue. Sorry about that scratching sound. And I'm going to set this right in the center as well. Now, why I use liquid adhesive, I've got time to maneuver it. I got time to wiggle to see if I can get it better straight or more in the center. Let's just say that. That sounds better. So here, if I put that on there, you can see my 3 layers. This first layer, the black, is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This next layer is 4 by 5 1/4. And this here is 3 3/4 by 5. Yes. Yes. Because again, 1/4 of an inch every time we go down. So if I take this, and again, here's one of those white card bases. I'm going to adhere this to the front. I'm going to use my liquid adhesive. Now, again, because of the pattern paper that I used as well, we could be done. Right here, we could be done. Now, I usually just angle that down, and then I bend the cardstock back and forth to get that centered, and then I press. So that's how I get that down there. So I start at the top, push it down, and then lay it flat, and then I wiggle it back and forth to get that on there. By looking at this right now, you cannot tell that this is a white card base until you open up the card. So again, just by having some white card bases, you're saving in your cost. You don't have to have the different colors. You can just create your mats or a base that measures the same size as the front of your card base. So as I said, right here, we've got lots of words, lots of sentiments. There you go. There's your card. And you've made a handmade card for somebody for Valentine's Day. Now, again, in that pack, they had all these wonderful choices of banners and squares with sentiments. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to set that even with this line of my pattern paper. So it's going to actually become my focal point, even though it's sitting up at the top. And I'm just going to make sure that's sitting up there. I can add dimension by curling these points of the banner, and then they raise up off the card. So again, not using any foam squares or anything like that. This paper already has some glitter accents. So we've got some shimmer and shine going on, or shine going on with our first card. So for our next card, I have these two pieces. Now this is cut 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and you can already see the sentiment that's sitting there. Again, you could just take this, put this on your card base. Absolutely. But I'm actually going to use it at the base. Here is one of those sentiment cards or tags that come in the kit as I drop it. And I'm going to set this right here. So the first thing that I want to do, I'm going to grab my card base. So this is going to become a landscape card. Now it's side folding. And I'm going to glue down my base first. Again, I hold it on the right side. I press that down, I lay it across, I quick lift it up. That makes it even top to bottom. And then I just look at it on to make sure that I don't see the card base. And now we're set right there. So I could just take this and set that right there, and we are done. We have our card. This has some wonderful shimmer on it with some glitter. But let's say we've used our scissors to cut this out, don't really want to pull the trimmer out, or maybe we don't have one. What you can do is a couple of things. So here is a piece of that 65-pound Recollections. I'm going to take this and I'm going to place my glue on the back, and I'm going to set this down onto towards the bottom corner, and I'm going to leave a border going around. Now, some people get very nervous with this. Some people like to say, I can't cut with a straight line, no matter. And again, that's fine. It's a handmade card. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. So, with that being adhered there, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut approximately the same border going around this piece. And I'm going to trim up this way. I'm going to take my time. Long shears are good because you can get one cut or one slice with one cut. So now if I take that there, I've now framed that. This sticks out just a little bit more. The love kind of gets pushed to the back, not so much the focal. This now becomes my focal. You can go one more level. And what I mean by that is you can add one more layer to this. I like to add multiple layers, and this one can be even smaller. So I'm going to add some glue to the back of this, and I'm going to place this down in the corner here, and I want it very thin, and you cannot see that because again, it's black paper. Yes, I'm awesome because I chose black paper. And I'm just going to press that down. And now I'm going to cut a thinner border using my scissors going along this edge. So one cut. Now I'm going to position my scissors again, and I'm going to go right up this edge. And that just needed a 1.5 cut. So now you can see, if I put that on lighter paper, I've got a very thin border. Let your eyes do that. Your scissors will go straight because it's a guide. You'll use that side of the paper as a guide. So when I put this down onto my card now it really pops up. It really stands out. That now becomes my focal. And again, that gets pushed to the back, but it's still seen. So if I glue this down, and I'm just going to set that right in the corner, and I'm going to push down. And that's our next card. Again, liquid adhesive, pattern paper, solid paper. That's all we're using to create our cards. We are letting our pattern paper do the work for us. One more card. One more. Okay, so here's my card base. So here is a piece of the pattern paper that I cut. It's got some awesome stripes, glitter stripes, yay. And this, of course, goes onto the front. So this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 and a standard A2 size card base. And I'm using that tan. Actually, the Desert Storm. Here's another piece of pattern paper that I really cut down. Here, what I want to show is you don't have to mat this. You don't have to have a solid piece of cardstock. You can just use your pattern papers and layer them up on each other. You just want to make sure, for me, what I usually make sure of is the large background, the biggest one, doesn't have a large focal point on it. And we're getting more of a focal point on the top layer. So if this one's cut 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, this one I'm just confirming my cut is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. So this will sit right on top. I can still see my stripes, but this has now become the focal. So I can take this, and I'm going to glue this onto my card base. Now, you don't have to put this right in the center. You can actually angle this. So let's angle it. Why not? Or if you want to put it straight, you can. So I'm just going to angle that a little bit. I still see my stripes, and I have a different focal point of interest because it's placed on an angle. So the sentiment that I chose was this one. Now you can tell it's the same paper as this. It's got the same design. So if I would just put that on there, it would be fine. You'd be able to see it. But let's have that stand out just a little bit more. So I am going to grab this craft cardstock, and I'm going to do the same thing. Again, you don't always have to use your trimmer. I do recommend it though, even if you're keeping it simple. Just that one piece really does a lot. And I'm going to, I'm going to set that down. Now, what does help is when you're doing it this way, you're setting your piece down in the corner that's already cut straight. So you know that when you place this down, you've got that even border. So now I'm just going to eye it. One cut. One cut. And one. So now I have that. So now I can take this and add that right there. You can keep adding on to this. Again, this is a piece of the Recollection 65-pound cardstock. And what I can do if I wanted, I could either add another red, or I could come in with that black shade, because you all know I am a fan of the black, just to throw that in, and you can see what that would look like. It would really pop. But again, you don't have to. Just by having that one layer, you've taken this paper, because maybe this one's your favorite, and you're setting it off. So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to set that right there in the corner. Again, now, some people like to have their 90-degree angles and so forth. I'm okay with it. I think this looks great. Now, if you have like a red button in your house somewhere, you can stick that button right on top. Not a fancy embellishment, just something very simple, or you can leave it this way. I'm going to take my glue. I'm going to add a little bit to the back. Grab my card base again. I'm going to snap this onto the top. Drop it. Wiggle. And press down. So here are the 3 cards. So I hope that helped. Again, we just used our pattern paper. Again, let that paper do the work. There's beautiful images out there. There's beautiful backgrounds and so forth. And solids can be great as well. You can just keep on layering and layering and layering, going down 1/4 of an inch, and you will have great dimension. And then, is it coming towards you or is it coming away from you? So you can actually create illusions just by layering and creating these mats as well. So I hope that helped. Again, don't need a paper cutter. Use your eyes. If you're not comfortable, you can measure, use a pencil, and use a ruler. But again, just using our paper, we've got 3 absolutely beautiful and clean and simple cards that are ready for the upcoming holiday. I hope you enjoyed this. Now, I do not believe the paper pad is available. But if I find it, I will link it down below. If you don't see it there, that just means I did not find it. I will link to my 2 favorite scissors. I will link to my art glitter glue that I am a true fan of, and of course my paper trimmer that I use. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I hope everyone's having a great day. Hopefully you're not getting snow like I am. It's not fun, not enjoying it, but it is beautiful. And plus, it forces me to get in my room so that, again, what is most important for me, we always be creative. Enjoy, everybody. Talk soon.